Hello, I'm Paul.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Ben.
And welcome to the Film Busters podcast. The film show with no filters, no prisoners taken, loads of disagreements, but one hell of a love for cinema.
If you want to hear three friends ridiculing each other for an hour or so regarding their taste in films, then you have come to the right place.
In each episode, one of the team picks a film for us to discuss. It could be anything from a recent cinema release to an all-time classic.
So, strap in and get ready to get mad or get vindicated as we guide you through the murky world of being a film geek.
If you like what you hear, you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram using @FilmbustersPod. You can also find each of our individual accounts. I'm at Filmbusters Paul.
I'm at Filmbusters Adam.
And I'm at Filmbusters Ben.
If you want to use your eyes instead of your ears, you can also visit the website at filmbusterspod.co.uk.
And if busting makes you feel good, you can also support us at patreon.com/filmbusters for exclusive content.
Or shoot over and get some groovy merchandise at society6.com/filmbusters.
Alright, can we just get on with this now, please?
Filmbusters. Hello everyone and welcome back to Filmbusters. Today's a very special day. We have two people who have arrived. They've been away for a long time. This is Ben, the usual host, who isn't really that important anymore because Jamie is here, our wonderful patron.
Way for Jamie.
Hey.
How are you, you wonderful man?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me back, although perhaps I'm flexing my patron sort of privileges here a little bit, aren't I?
Well, we can't really say no if you're paying us the money.
Exactly.
We can't really say no, you got to go
forcing
home.
myself.
Listen, you are better than all of us, mate. So you are welcome back anytime. And if you want to just take control of Filmbusters, you may do so.
Yes, we'll hand over the domain, give you the Buzzsprout login, and you can take this podcast from us.
No thanks.
Now, let's get it out of the way immediately. As fans of the podcast and fans of Jamie himself should know, unless you were living under a rock, you... Well, we all found out something very cool about a month ago, right? Maybe you should be the one to say it, Jamie. But you have someone quite high profile who was once quite connected to you.
Yes. Well, it was completely out of the blue. I had no idea about this at all. In fact, I was watching Loki with my daughter and watched the first episode and both really enjoyed it. Got to the end of the episode and it said directed by Kate Herron. I thought, that name sounds familiar. I taught a Kate Herron a long time ago. I thought, well, you sort of think, well, it's more likely to be an American, Kate Herron, perhaps. But anyway, I thought, I'll just check. You never know. So I looked up IMDb. And thankfully, she hasn't changed at all in the sort of 17 years since I taught her. And so I said to Erin, I taught her. And of course, as an enthusiastic teenager she is, she immediately demanded that I try to contact her in some way. And so,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Defo.
So I was just onto Twitter and gave her a message, not really expecting any sort of response. And I think I mentioned it to you guys as well. And the very next morning, I got a fantastic response. Sort of, I wouldn't have gone into film without you, and it was just fantastic.
That's got to be amazing to hear.
Yes,
to hear that is the ultimate, right? That's why you do what you do.
It is absolutely.
Jamie, that is incredible, mate.
So good.
That is amazing stuff.
Makes it all worthwhile.
Amazing stuff. Kudos.
Thank you.
Do you think that we that's in 17 years, someone who listens to this podcast will say, I got into filmmaking because of you, and they'll be like the new Tarantino or something, and they'll go, I owe it all to Filmbusters.
Who knows?
Never.
You never know.
That's it. You just have to keep on going, and you never know what. You had no idea that you had me as a fan.
Exactly.
So.
I saw something the other day on Twitter. So I don't remember who posted it, but Julio retweeted it, and it said, and this is a call out to all of those of you who listen to the podcast.
I agree with this, yeah.
And it's like, if you listen to a podcast and you like what you hear, reach out and tell them, because there is nothing they would love more. And it's true, dear listeners, if anyone is out there in the stratosphere who isn't on Twitter, that speaks to us regularly or anything like that, and you think, oh, I don't really want to get in touch, it's a bit awkward or anything, please do it. Send an email, tweet us, Instagram, whatever the thing is, because we would love to know. You haven't even got to say anything. All you got to say is, hey, I listened to that episode, it was okay. That would mean the world to us. So please do it. If you feel like doing it, and we don't know who you are, please do it. It would be good to know you're out there.
And we might mention you in our podcast.
Oh, we definitely would.
Yeah.
Or you can sit where Jamie's sitting.
Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. You never know.
Anyway, this is a big episode because it's been a long time since just the core film busters were all bloody together, because the last episode was before Jaws 2. Mm-hmm. And can you remember what that episode was? Was it?
It would have been my pick, wouldn't it? Would you be Nice Guys?
Nice Guys. It's been since Nice Guys.
Nice Guys. Last one.
A very long time.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Nice Guys, Jaws 2, Power Rangers, The Suicide Squad. That's the gap.
The film's just gone, ooh.
Then we had a little break. Ben was away. I had a little break, but it was just in between podcasts because I'm a professional and I didn't want to miss any, unlike Ben.
It would fall apart without you, Paul. You'd have to edit the shit out of this.
Thank you.
Did you still edit our Jaws 2 podcast?
He did, very kindly.
I did. But we are here. We are back all together with Jamie as well on board to do his choice, The Vanishing, from 1988 by George Slutzer?
That sounded all right.
Something along those lines.
It's about that.
We went in very baccarat blind. Jamie didn't want us to know anything about this film, so it's all very exciting, and I am very excited to talk about it with you guys.
Very much anticipated.
Indeed.
We actually found out we would be watching this like a couple of months back, Jamie. You revealed that this was going to be the next pick. So for a while we knew it was coming. And then obviously we watched it and then had to wait a fair few weeks to actually record the episode.
It's a big event.
So much so that you needed to watch it again, Ben.
Oh, well spotted, Jamie.
Yes.
Well spotted.
Yes.
I rewatched it today, everyone.
I noticed.
I kind of was like, do I need to rewatch it again? I wrote pretty good notes, but I was like, I need it fresh. I need it fresh again.
That's nice. I didn't have time. I'm very sorry. Very poor.
Oh, God, you've been holidaying. You've been busy holidaying.
Did you buy it then, Ben?
I bought it the first time round. I have to confess, this second time round, I watched the YouTube version.
YouTube. I could have watched that instead to recap my memory on it.
I actually rented it on YouTube the first time round anyway. I didn't even realise that it was already on YouTube for free. But I would recommend paying for it because you should always pay for your product.
Yes.
I did not even know it was on YouTube for free, so I paid for my product.
What can we say?
Do you own this film, Jamie?
I do, yes.
Well, look at that.
In what capacity? Blu-ray?
No, just a standard DVD.
It was only on SD on YouTube as well, I think.
I don't think there is.
There wasn't a HD version when I went to rent it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's not. I don't think there's a Blu-ray. I think there's a Criterion actually, so there might actually be.
But there's interestingly, Criterion don't always do Blu-rays, do they?
They don't.
Criterion have
That's
also
true.
just got a bunch of DVDs.
That's true.
Maybe it adds to the 80s aesthetic. But anyway, before we get too much into that film, Paul, you say the other thing.
We haven't done this in a while as well. Let's do the staple of every episode, which is the quiz. If you haven't listened to an episode before, we do a quiz every episode where I normally ask Adam and Ben 2 questions, and if they get them right, they get the points. If they get them wrong, I get the points. The scores are Adam on 21, Ben on 20, and me on 12.
Wow, I'm much closer than I remember being.
Very
And
close.
so it's clearly a very competitive move, Ben, that you've watched this film again recently.
It was only for the quiz questions, Jamie.
Indeed.
And speaking now of the quiz, and the host will actually be Jamie this episode, very excitingly. So I actually get an opportunity.
It's going to be much more straightforward than last time. Don't worry.
We had pen and paper last time. We had to draw a picture.
What we did, we did.
6,000 points. Right. Okay. Are we ready for question one?
Are there 2 questions, Jamie?
There are 2 questions, yes.
Okay.
So, the first one. What sporting event is featured as radio commentary at
The Tour de
key points
France.
of the film?
I'm going to say cycling, but Adam said Tour de France, so how specific do you want to be?
Well, it has to be the actual event, so it's Tour de France, so yeah.
Well done, Adam.
Done, Adam.
I knew cycling. When you said it, I knew cycling, but I couldn't get the name of the actual competition into my head. I couldn't
There's
get
only
it
one
in
real cycling event.
there. I know, but I couldn't get it in there.
He's too ahead.
Well done.
Okay, this next one's a bit trickier. What 2 birthday presents are used by Raymond to lure Saskia?
The key ring and the box of tiles.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I knew the key
Excellent.
ring, I wouldn't have got the tile.
Was he also wearing
It had
the
an R on it,
cardigan
didn't
that
it?
Well,
his other
I
daughter
went
bought
back
for
to check that, and no, he's not.
him? Okay.
No,
Okay.
he's not. Yeah.
I actually forgot about the
that's good
tiles.
questions. The tiles, yeah.
Tiles, yeah. And then she sees the photo, doesn't she?
Yes.
The photo of them all on the bridge.
Look at that, one apiece.
One apiece. Good work, Jamie, and you're keeping me and Adam in the game.
Ooh. Lovely stuff. So do you want to know the scores at the end of that round?
Oh, please.
Well, Adam, you're on 22. Ben, you're on 21, and I'm on 12.
Paul, I think you can safely say you're out of contention this year, don't you think?
Listen, this was all about you guys this year. I'm the quiz host. It just means I'm
Why
doing
don't you
good
take
questions.
all the points that people like Jamie and Julio and all them people have got when they've turned up onto our quiz?
Nah.
We can add them onto yours.
I don't need the
and
points,
it might make it
mate.
up to like 15.
I want you two to be one of the champions this year. I don't need it. I've won it too many times.
What,
Oh,
once?
what a braggart you are.
Was it once you won it?
I've won it twice.
No, you were just host by default the first time round. You never won it.
No,
it was
no.
just you were hosting.
No, that wasn't it. I won it the first year. You won it the second year, Ben. I won it this year to get this one again.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Whatever you say, Paul.
Yes.
I keep a score.
Yeah. You're a very good score
Anyway, very
master.
good questions, Jamie. Thank you.
Excellent work. Did you get them at home, children?
We hope so.
Hopefully no children were watching this film, I would say that much.
Before we move on to the main event, we should talk about the wonderful Patreon episode that we will be doing at the end of this episode. We've already recorded it. Jamie has suggested the Patreon topics. He actually suggested
3
a
of them,
few.
was it?
Yeah, and we were the ones to decide what one we wanted to do. And it was a very lengthy episode.
What one do you reckon we went for, Jamie?
Best sociopaths.
You got it.
That is correct. That is very correct. We're talking about the best or most effective sociopaths in film. We all had 3.
And what makes the difference between...
Yeah. Also,
Yeah,
what makes
yeah.
the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath.
Yeah,
We had a very
good.
great talk.
Excellent.
That is on our Patreon channel, www.patreon.com/filmbusters. If you want to get some exclusive content, exclusive episodes, you can come on the episodes like Jamie is right now. That'd be a wonderful thing, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
You're meant to be excited, Jamie.
Oh, sorry, was you expecting something from me then?
Don't worry, I'll do the same.
Absolutely.
And if you become a patron, you can become a patron like Jamie Russell, who's on the episode right now.
Or you could be a patron like Katie and Oti, who aren't on the episode right now, but have been on episodes in the past, such as the Jesus Rolls and
the District 9.
District 9.
correct.
That's their own
Yes.
episode.
That's their own
And the
episode.
other
But you
person
should
to
also
feed-
go and check out their podcast because it's highly effective.
Yeah, the Big Lebowski. You guessed it on
And the
that
Big Lebowski, thank you, flying solo on that one. But yes, Big
Yeah.
Lebowski as well.
Indeed.
We also have Julio, who... What did he do? He did the Charlie Chaplin film. What was that called again?
Limelight.
That's the
Adam
wicked-
gave it an 8 out of 10. He loved it.
I did.
Can't remember the
enjoy
name
that
though.
film.
That was great.
No.
Yes.
I can't remember your name half the time. Call you Ben.
We also did Holy Motors with him and his
Yes, we did.
compadre Alex.
Yes.
Yes.
Or you could become a patron like Nerdrovert, who's not on the episode right now, but he is from Texas.
He's from
That's what he likes to
Texas.
mention.
He is.
Is he really?
Yes.
When I was on holiday and the boys were doing episodes in my absence, when you got to that part and you brought up Texas again, it just made me laugh so much. Why is this a thing that
I
we
don't
have
know,
to point out in
but
the
it's a
episode?
thing
It's
now.
funny though. Nerd Revert, I hope you're not annoyed that we keep referring Texas. It's just that's how we know you, man. You're from Texas.
And Julio.
And
Julio's
Julio.
from Texas.
2 of them.
Lovely.
They both did voices for King of the Hill. In fact, they were both King of the Hill. Bobby Hill was based on Nerd River, and Luan was based on Julio. Only King of the Hill fans will get why that's funny.
That's a fact, apparently.
Everyone else will just think, "Well, is that?" But they're highly offensive comparisons.
But yes, you become a patron at www.patreon.com/filmbusters, and that just means that now we can move on to the main event, which is The Vanishing.
The film was, to tell you the truth, was not discovered because I could not get a distributor for more than a year. After having been also in Cannes, no one was interested. No one. Not Miramax, and none of the other English, whatever you were, nobody. So what happened was that the Sydney Festival missed a film, and the director, who I knew vaguely, said, "I thought you made a film, George. We miss a film in the program because something was cancelled. Is that so? And can you send it?" And I said, "Yes, I did make a film," and he didn't know it. So I went to Sydney, and the film was shown. There's only one prize, and that's the Audience Award, and the film got it. And that was the start, I could say, of the life of The Vanishing. Stanley Kubrick asked Johanna to play in his next movie. I mean, he saw the film. He was, I must say that to my own pleasure, he's the biggest fan. He was the biggest fan of Spoorloos. He saw it, I think, 10 times and called me when I was working in Los Angeles, telling me about, and we discussed the film shot by shot and everything. And I remember that he said, "You know, it's the most terrifying film I've ever seen in my life." And I said, "But have you seen The Shining?" And he said, oh, that's just child's play compared. I mean, that's not frightening at all compared to your movie.
Right, everyone, today we're talking about The Vanishing from 1998 by George Sluizer, something along those lines. This is a spoiler episode. We will go straight into spoilers, no hanging around. So if you haven't seen it, we'll ruin the film for you. So you better go watch it or just get spoilt by our spoilers. But first of all, Adam, you have to do a very wonderful plot summary of this film.
All right, how deep do you want me to go with this plot summary?
As deep as you can.
Because I was just going to say, an incident happens in a parking lot of a service station in France, which is basically what happens. But I don't know how much you want me to delve on the topic of this film.
Delve.
All right.
Delve away.
This woman gets kidnapped from her boyfriend in a car park of a service station in France, and he's hunting down to find the person who kidnapped her.
All right, Adam. Just to flesh it out a little bit, how about one of your famous or infamous meal analogies for The Vanishing?
A meal?
Yeah, what sort of meal is it?
It's got to be something French. Maybe like snails. You might like it or hate it. I don't know.
Oh, that's a great yes.
Bit of a slow burner.
Mm-hmm. A little bit odd. Not something you'd immediately go to. Ooh.
Yeah.
It's also the only French
bit
food I
slimy.
can really think of.
I'd feel very unsettled eating snails watching this movie, I've got to say.
Especially when you look at his beard.
Yeah, his beard.
His goatee.
So following my failure to do what I was asked, instead, it would be much more fitting if Jamie, who has a history with this film, of course, laid it out for all of you as to how he was introduced to it and what was going on in his life at that time. Well, he doesn't have to tell us what was going on in his life. He could just tell us how he felt about the film. But the circumstances is always very interesting for us to hear about. The circumstances around the film.
Right.
So let's hear about it.
So I'm not 100% sure about this, but I suspect I actually watched the remake first.
Oh, wow.
And I'll speak about the remake later on. And you know, there are parts of the remake that are done well, and it's technically the same sort of story, obviously, with a few changes. And so I thought, oh, that was quite interesting, that was quite good. Then I found out that it was a remake and that the original was significantly better. So that was my sort of way in. And I remember watching it with my sister in Edinburgh. when she was at Edinburgh University, and I remember visiting her, watching The Vanishing, and yeah, just I thought it was fantastic. I remember having lots of discussions with Sarah, and it's just one of those films that stays with you, and that's why the break that we've had is quite interesting. It's, because it is one of those films that can sort of linger for a while, and then I remember after that it was a film that I thought, well, I'm going to have to show my students this. So I did. I actually showed it after school. I don't normally do. I showed it after school, and the reason I remember that is that another member of staff attended, and he said, because I'd sort of advertised it around the school, he said, I just have to see this film again. I saw this film about 10 years ago, and it terrified me. It haunted me, but I have to see it again. So that was Mr. Hughes. He was a French teacher. I just remember him sitting along with all the students watching it after school. And yeah.
Did you show it to Kate Herron, Jamie?
I didn't.
Oh, who knows what would have happened? She would have been directing an episode of Twin Peaks had you shown that to her.
It's quite possible. And we obviously talked about the films that I showed, and she, it certainly wasn't that, but I did show her Audition.
Oh yes.
Oh.
Yeah, she was in that class there with that one poor chap he just felt you could just see it. He started sort of, during the key scene at the end, he started going. I thought, oh no! And then his head was on the table. And he looked like he was going to be sick. And then, can I leave? Can I leave the room, please, sir? Yeah, off you go.
Well, that's very good. It just occurred to me something that you did actually say, Jamie, a few weeks ago. You said one of your things is to find out what Stanley Kubrick thought of this film. I did find that out. Yes. I think I'm right in saying that he called up the director and said it was either the most terrifying film that he had ever seen. And the director was like, "What are you talking about? You did The Shining." And he's like, "Yes," but he said something like, "Yes, but your film something." I can't remember what it was.
As a homage to The Shining at the beginning as well. It pretty much starts in the same way, doesn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Very true.
Well, anyway.
That was wonderful.
Very good.
That was a wonderful intro. And because this is your film, Jamie, you get to choose what order you would like us to do our first impressions in.
Right. I'm going to go alphabetical, please.
Oh.
A, B, J, P.
Oh no,
you're going to go last.
You're
after.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's got the anchor.
Alphabetical amongst you guys.
Okay.
He's got the anchor leg.
That means it's you, Adam. You're
I
first.
know it means it's me. I've got to prepare myself. Fuck me.
Right, first of all, Adam, have you rewatched it since you saw it?
I haven't rewatched it though, so I watched this probably about. It must be coming up to about a month now. I watched it about a week before we meant to record.
Oh yes.
It's been 3 weeks, like we've mentioned since then. So a little bit hazy. So yes, like you said, this film it's suspense from the moment you watch this film. I feel like because you don't really know what's going to happen, you're immediately put on edge. Like from the second it happens, you're like, something bad is going to happen in this film, obviously, to make it how renowned it is. But when is that bad thing happening? What is that bad thing going to be? And it is just so good at building and building and building that suspense. And then, almost for me, when it happens, the suspense is kind of gone. And then the film, it's kind of just, there's some parts of it that go through emotions, and there's some parts of it that are still just as gripping ever. But the problem for me with this film is it lingered on certain points for too long. If you carried on this motion a bit longer, if you carried on the story, I think there was a bit of a flow with how I think the film went after, well, spoiler, she was kidnapped. After then, they lingered on that bit too long, and then it kind of jumping forward, and we're jumping forward, and we're going here and we're going there. That's what I remember from memory. But there are some fantastic moments in this film, and there's some moments that I thought was a bit meh. But if you had asked, if we did this 3 weeks ago, I'd have probably given this film an 8 out of 10. But
Oh, you have to stick with that. You can't change that.
I feel like now it's kind of lingering on the 7 aspect. Maybe now, talking to us, all of us together, talking about the film and bringing back memories on it, it might go back there. Because I also do feel like it's a film that needs to be spoken about. If I watched this film for the first time, I would have, like you, Jamie, have picked 4. I put it on my list of maybe films I was going to pick at some point. Because there's so many discussion topics that happen along this way.
Interesting.
And so it's 7 for you
at the moment, but yeah.
And that's Ben's fault.
I'll get you up to an 8. I'll get you up to an 8.
Yeah, Jamie will talk you
Ben
up.
after reading got a 6, I think, so we're going up, Ben, slowly, Jamie.
Yes, it's true. Okay, well, as Jamie pointed out, I did do a rewatch today, but allow me a little digression very quickly. I'm not going to take up too much of your time, dear listeners, but considering the subject matter of this film, the fact that we were going to record it before I went on a 2-week road trip with my wife, the fact that we watched it 3 or 4 days before we went on said road trip and have spent the last 2.5 weeks driving around this country in cars, hopping in and out of cars at various places and whatnot, it added a level of resonance because, as you said, Jamie, it stays with you. And throughout the trip, I couldn't help but think about how horrible the idea is that someone, doesn't matter how much you think you can protect them or look after them or be with them or watch them, and not even protect them, but no matter how vigilant you think you can be, so many circumstantial things can happen that can suddenly take that person from your life. And the fact that I thought it when watching the film originally is a good thing, but the fact that I was thinking that while I was actually out on the road with my wife is a whole other thing. It added extra weight and resonance, which is why I wanted to watch it again before we did this record, so that I could see, right, how do I feel about it now, having done that trip as well. So I really loved the film anyway, first of all, up front. I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. It threw all my expectations out, because one of the first things I wasn't expecting was within 10-15 minutes. I didn't know anything about the film, but I knew a person went missing, disappeared. So when you see the abductor putting a cast on his arm in the car really early on, it set me back, because I was like, oh, we're seeing the person, and you look at him and you think, oh, well, you're not much of anything, you look like a bit of a buffoon. And then you were exposed to him very early on in those petrol station scenes, and I thought, oh, I wish they weren't doing this. I wish it was going to be more of a mystery. But I loved that you were introduced to him so early on, because then it changed the game of what the film was about, because then very quickly it became, well, going into his mindset. And the fact that you flash back without even knowing what has actually happened to her, you flash back to the past to see all of his meticulous preparations, was fascinating. And at first I was very disorientated, because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know why he was getting the family to scream. I didn't know why he was like chlorifying himself, all that sort of thing. But you know, something's not quite right. But I loved the way that it built up and played up. I wasn't completely sold then when it jumped forward and we saw the obsession of Rex, because something didn't quite ring true to me about the way Rex was behaving. I get the whole thing of obsession and need for an answer, and I liked that. I liked that he needed an answer and wanted closure for sure. But I didn't quite buy the Rex that we had seen prior to that becoming this Rex that we saw afterwards. And we can talk a little bit about that afterwards, because there's a few interesting things that come up. But the main thing that fascinated me was the insight into the killer in that way, which we never really get. We never really get that exposure to if he is a killer, which I guess indirectly he is, but we don't actually know that. What is he? Yes, indirectly he is, yeah. But we don't know if he killed Saskia, for one thing. But what I really liked was this thing. We watched him for almost an hour meticulously plot every step, and then what happened to Saskia was a result of coincidence, and that whole thing of like fate and planning. You know, they just can't coexist. Like, you can have set all the wheels in motion for something to happen, and then something completely unexpected changes everything. And that's true for the abduction in the film, but it's also true for everything in life. Like, no matter what you plan, all circumstances way beyond your control, the butterfly effect from all different walks of life can change absolutely everything. So So we talk a little bit more about it. It is an 8 out of 10 for me. When I first watched it, it was an 8, low 8. At the back of this trip and rewatching it again, it borders on a 9, and I really want to give it that 9, but we can talk about some of the reasons why I actually don't, and maybe you can talk me up, Jamie, I don't know. But I thought it was fantastic, and it's in my top 10 first time watches of the year. And hopefully it will feature again in the end of the year if we do talk about it, if it stays in that spot.
Look at that.
I'm good. You've nailed it. You've hit a nail on the head there. The point.
It's a 9 out of 10.
But I'll talk to you about it in a bit. But you just reminded me of something.
All right.
And that's like a crossroads in the film for me.
Okay. See you at the crossroads. Adam.
See you at the crossroads.
I have to say that going to this film Baccarat blind, as we like to say, it truly helped me to settle in to the story, and especially with no expectation of where it was actually headed, because the whole first segment with Rex and Saskia was so involved and expansive for something that was unbeknownst to me actually a murder mystery. I thought the film was just revolving around their relationship. I didn't read anything about this film, and I was even really wrapped up in their dynamic and the odd backstory between them, and I was actually going to I thought I was actually going to find out about that. But that just kind of shows good writing, because the world should be layered like this as life is, But soon enough, I was finally true to its title. The Vanishing happened, and I could see the plot unfolding in front of me. But the film kept surprising me still, revealing the killer from the off, and not only that, but getting involved in how he was planning the kidnapping and building himself up to it. It was all incredibly original and engaging, but opposite. I read this opposite to what the Entertainment Weekly labelled the film as, the 25th scariest film in the world. That's what this is labelled as, apparently. I never really found it all scary. It was more intriguing than horrific, really.
Yeah.
And I think the most uncomfortable scene was us eventually seeing Saskia being kidnapped, really, because it was all building up to that. But other than that, watching our killer Raymond practice his techniques it was obviously dark, but it was kind of just original, and I enjoyed it just for that. Then the whole cat and mouse dynamic was very well played too, especially its use of the cinematography and the camera placement during the cafe scenes, when you see him up on the balcony.
Oh, so good!
And on the table, that was very well done.
So
and
good.
even when he's you see him draping that key ring, he's holding it in the background. It's it's only for you to see. It's it's not even talked about. That's very good. And but it's ending. It's ending. Even after these 3 weeks, I'm still very undecided. I'm in 2 minds with it. I enjoy the blunt, dark and unforgiving final moments, but then at the same time, I'm not sure if it was a good enough payoff. I'm still not sure. I think its ending might be the weakest part of the film. Everything leading up to it is better than its ending, I feel. But I'm hoping you can convince me otherwise, because regardless of that, it's a very solid 8 out of 10.
Joyful.
I'll take that. Okay.
Go on, Jamie.
Right. I've probably changed my mind a little bit about this film, and I think originally I did put it down as a 10. But I just felt maybe because I was watching it this time thinking, oh, there's going to be other people scrutinising this, my mark needs to be accurate. So I was watching it from a more critical perspective, probably. And there's some things that, which I may elaborate upon later, that I didn't like as much with it. I felt there were some tonal sort of changes that didn't really work. And I'll speak about that later. But the central sort of storyline, and then story is key in film, is really compelling, and still is very compelling on rewatch. In fact, on a rewatch, I don't know, Ben, if you felt this, you were picking up quite a, it's littered with clues beforehand, and you just got a bit more clued up into it about what they're sort of relating to. So it's a sort of film that with such a dramatic ending, you'd think, well, that's a one-watch film, but you can watch it again, and it gives you a different sort of experience. So it's very compellingly told story of obsession, and I'm drawn to films that deal with, obsession as a theme. I find that fascinating. You got sort of dual obsession, because you've got Rex's obsessive, I would say fatalistic need for closure, and then on the one hand, and you got Raymond's sort of equally obsessive exploration of his sociopathic urges on the other hand, and it's these two forces coming together, meeting, and that sort of cat and mouse thing I thought was really well handled throughout, and I think the themes that it explores are just fascinating. So free will versus determinism, fate and chance, things that you talked about, Ben. Yes, that's exactly how I felt about it. How Saskia's abduction is ultimately due to Raymond messing up with the previous one, and how she is. She sort of helps Raymond by being so forward, and she is quite a sort of a childlike, innocent character in many ways, and it's that sort of naivety that ends up killing her essentially, or contributing to it. And I think Rex's character, Raymond's character is focused on more, and yes, you are really you are sharing his view quite explicitly at key points. Be interesting to see what you think about, when we discuss it later on, about Rex's character, whether you feel he is convincing as a character or not. But you can sort of argue that his obsessive search is compelling, and perhaps a tagline for the film should be, "How far will you go to find out the truth?" Because he is willing to go, and he said, I'll quote him, "I'm prepared to do anything I need to know."
Yeah.
And so Raymond is the only one who can provide him with the answers.
Mm.
And it's those two worlds colliding.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. But the view, I said, tonal issues with it, and so it's not a 10. I'm going to give it a 9.
Very nice.
I think that's fair.
I can see that coming.
Preempting some of the stuff that we'll talk about, some of the negatives, I think a 9 is fair, but that is not in any way, I wouldn't say any of us would say that is because the film is massively flawed. It's a really, really well done film for all the reasons that we said, and let's not forget this was 88, and I don't want to talk about the ending straight away, but just one thing that occurred to me based on what you said, Paul, about the ending, and this is what I thought at the time. I kind of shared with the whole buried alive thing at the end. I kind of think of, is this how it's going to end? But I feel like that's because we've seen buried alive films since. Yeah. And like in 88, Buried and Kill Bill and other such things, they didn't exist. So that would have been probably very original, very unheard of. And yeah, well, we can talk about that later, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. So we think the best way to approach this episode is if we break this down into 4 sections. So just to give you guys context, hopefully everyone who's listening has watched the film. And if you haven't, you really should before you listen to this one. But if you really don't want to and you want to listen, the film can be broken down into 4 sections, which is the first 25 to 30 minutes where boyfriend and girlfriend, husband and wife, whatever you want to call them, are on this road trip together, and then the woman goes missing. We don't know why. Then the second part, we see her eventual abductor and all his methodical preparations that lead up to the eventual abduction of her. And then we flash forward 3 years and see Rex, her long-suffering companion who's obsessed with the idea of finding her, and Raymond, the abductor, who becomes obsessed with Rex, who is looking for Saskia, and their eventual face-to-face and final journey together, which forms the final part of the film. So we're kind of going to break the episode down into those sections, I think, and just generally talk about the things that happen in those. Sound good, boys?
Sounds like a plan. Right, so let's go for that first part then, where it's basically like the bit before you even know what's going on, and their relationship, and almost this kind of mystical element, which is the bit that kind of I grasped onto about this golden egg. Like, I found that really interesting. Is almost like she had foresight into what was happening with the golden egg being. I'm guessing the golden egg now is the coffin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I found that really interesting, an interesting element to the story.
Yes, it certainly was. There's lots of things throughout the film that you could kind of read as the golden egg. Like Jamie said, when you rewatch it, there's lots of different things that appear at certain points, and you go, right, it's there the whole time.
Mm.
The coffin, yes. The 2 coins that are buried side by side beneath the tree at the early stage.
Do you reckon
film.
that's a foreshadowing of what's probably going to happen to them too?
Well, yeah, of course. That's it. Like
definitely.
two coins buried underground, side by side together. Yeah, that's the
like pure in love and cleansing of them.
The 2 of them. The final lights that they both have, like her in the tunnel with the flashlight, him in the coffin with the lighter light, like that final light in the darkness. I mean, yeah, coffins could literally be their final pictures in the wanted poster. Either way, I think the thing is, it's the 2 of them in isolation from the rest of the world. Why? Because they are destined to die together in similar situations, both abandoned in dark places, you know. But it's very. I agree. The mysticism introduced early on is fascinating on that front.
You mentioned abandoned in dark places. Of course, Rex is the first person to actually abandon Saskia.
Yes.
He walks. He leaves her when she's begging for him, and he leaves her. And as you're walking out, you can clearly see that he's getting some sort of pleasure out of it as well, because you see a smirk on his face. I agree with you that the tunnel serves as a sort of foreshadowing. It's and. When I first watched the film, I thought that was when she was going to get kidnapped in the in the tunnel. It's another sort of enclosed space, isn't it? And she obviously feels sort of claustrophobic and trapped, and that foreshadows what ultimately happens to her in a much more horrendous way. But she is essentially trapped and imprisoned in that location for a period of time, and Rex has abandoned her and left her.
Yeah.
And it is this that forms the sort of the crux of later on when she promises, he has to make a promise never to abandon her again.
Mm-hmm. Go through with
it. And he's certainly true to that word, isn't he? He does well. I'd like to sort of speak to you about this. Whether you feel his obsession, and I'm looking ahead later on, but I'm trying to sort of mark this as a point or discussion for later on. Is his obsession based around his guilt for what he did to her and that abandoning her in that first place? Does he feel responsible partially for what happened to her? Is it genuine love, or is it more about his own sense that he needs to know? It's about his situation and how he wants emotional closure over it. It's got nothing to do with whether he's going to find her or not. In fact, has he moved emotionally away from her?
Can we just clarify? So the girl you see him with a couple of years later, so we jump ahead, is that another girlfriend, or was that like his sister?
Yeah. No,
it's another girl.
That's his current girlfriend, but he's clearly
in love with her.
Got so many sort of issues.
Yeah.
He's unable to go.
Because it was kind of one of those things. It's like if you had a new girlfriend like that, you might not be that hung up on it anymore. Like you've got to try and rebuild your life in this way.
Adam's like, just move on.
Well, I'm not saying move on, but if you're trying to build a relationship, she was very understanding, almost like a sister would be rather than a new girlfriend would be. It's like, are you trying to build a new life with this person, or are you still so hung up and so guilty on your
That's
old
what
life?
I thought he couldn't let go. That was the whole point.
Absolutely.
That's why she couldn't be with him.
Yeah.
Well, all right, we'll get to that.
Yes.
When we get to that point in the future. To pick up on what you're saying there, Jamie, about him, that sort of smile on his face in these early stages is very interesting. That relationship between Rex and Saskia, because Rex makes some strange decisions and behaves very oddly for the first half of their time together, up until the point where they arrive at the petrol station. Yeah, he smiles when he leaves her, when he hears that she's like obviously scared and desperate. He like the fact that she's doing her makeup in the mirror is offensive to him. He slams the mirror back up to the roof. When she's looking at the petrol gauge, he's like, don't worry about it, like just go back to your whatever. He's very dismissive of her. He doesn't like her commenting on his driving or anything like that. So he really comes across as very unsympathetic, right? But then I was thinking, is the director just doing an incredible job of showing how guilt could really play a part in something like this happening, right? I only speak for myself. If on one, God forbid, Jenny or any loved one suddenly went missing today or tomorrow morning or something like that, and I played back the final moments, I would potentially linger on the things that could arbitrarily be considered, oh, that's not very nice, when that's not representative of the relationship. But because we saw those things in the film, we're like, oh, well, he must be a bad guy. It's more complex than that. It is a very layered character, I think. I think we're just seeing a very realistic insight into a human relationship. But it is interesting that the director chooses to show us those things. Normally, we wouldn't see that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, saying that he's almost drawn from this one situation that they got themselves into. But I also love, like, this is how layered this whole first segment is, that I do still want to know their background. Like, I feel like there's definitely something going on with Saskia, and there's something in their relationship that makes him feel this guilt, and I love that, and I love that you don't know, and it adds to this mysticism of the situation that he got himself in and his drive to want to find it and almost like forgive himself for letting her go. And it wasn't even him, but it's just the situation that presented to us that makes him feel this way. I love that.
Yes, it's just very human. It's a very human relationship that we're seeing. We all know, like, yeah, you know, basic script writing 101 would suggest present a really happy couple, everything's going great, teasing, maybe they have an argument but they get it, but it's minor, it's over. I don't want to move to the city, I don't want to have a baby, you know, that obvious shit.
That's exactly why I thought, what is this film about? Is this film about the relationship?
Yeah,
because it never normally happens like this. It's normally cut and dry. Someone loses their girlfriend. She's just a nothing character. You're just chasing this idea of a person, not an actual fleshed out character, which is what added so much to this film. Yeah.
And going back to you saying, Jamie, that you thought here in the tunnel, the first time you watched in the tunnel, this was where the abduction was going to be. Yes. And there are many false starts after that, aren't there? Like the first time that she goes into the petrol station as well, and Raymond watches her, you're like, oh, right, well, she's not coming out of there. And she does come out. There's another false start. So it happens multiple times, and I'm there for that, because it works to your advantage. Like, oh, when's it going to happen? Is it going to happen now? Is it going to happen now? Even if you don't know anything about the film, you know the Vanishing, so you're kind of like, oh, well, she's probably going to vanish, right? Yeah. I was going to ask, but I wrote this note before I went away, but now I know the answer to it. I was going to ask you guys why you thought we hear so much commentary on the cycling throughout the movie, but particularly up front. But now I think the answer is, I don't know anything about Tour de France, so perhaps this is why I didn't get it, but I think it's so that you know where you are chronologically in the film when it then flashes back afterwards, I think.
My take on that, and if you, it's actually useful that it's a subtitled film, because those radio commentary comments, you know, you read them, whereas in an English language film, you wouldn't necessarily get the same sort of focus on it.
Yeah.
But the language that was used is really focusing on essentially the this obsessive nature within cycling itself, and how neither is willing to back down. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I wrote down. I linked this to the continuous commentary on the Tour de France. Two competitors. So I view this as Rex and Raymond. They are devoted to winning, each not willing to back down, and it's a duel between two obsessive desires to win.
That's a much, much better analogy and reason for the commentary.
Yeah, I never really thought much of it. I thought it was just scene setting, to be honest. But then you guess nothing's unintentional, nothing's just thrown out.
It's very, very deliberate.
This is why you go to film school, isn't it? This is the type of stuff you pick up if you do that type of stuff.
There you go, young Adam. It's never too late, boy.
There is some very oddly placed things in this film though, as well, that make me question everything. Like, did you notice the ping pong balls when they fell out of the car? And then later down the line, you also see, I can't remember where it is, but you see ping pong again, and it.
But you know what that is?
Why?
Because that, Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, because even on this rewatch, it wasn't totally clear. I believe that is the house, that is Saskia's house that they were going onto.
Yes.
But they never made it there.
Yeah.
Wait, what's the house?
Where he goes and collapses on the grass going, Saskia, that is the house that they were travelling to, which they never made it to.
Right.
Hence
and that's
taking
why
all the
there's
ping pong balls.
Yes, right. So that's
which is,
why.
again, it's to the film's credit, man. Just like you say, something little like that, and they were like setting up that they were going to go off and do this thing.
This is why I feel like it's a film you do need to discuss, because again, I would have completely ignored these little factors, and now here we are.
Yeah.
Coaxing them down and sorting them out. And that's why we're here.
It's very cleverly written, and the mise-en-scene is very well placed.
Well, it is. That's it. All of that stuff at the petrol station leading up to her going missing is tense, because you know something's coming. And I think when the inevitable disappearance does happen, that is almost excruciating and unbearable to watch, even on a rewatch, because especially on a rewatch when you know what's happened and you know how close Rex is to actually seeing her walking off with Raymond, because it's just the truck pulling in at the wrong moment. It's a little bit.
As soon as I saw that
do
truck,
find
that was one of those things. It's like you obviously so you know someone's going to go missing, and you see that scene happen. You're like, this is when it's happening now. So you're looking at everything. You're like, that truck, that person who drove that truck. That's the person
you're looking
who
at
did
every
it.
car. Yes,
That happened. All of that, and now
I do find. I don't know if when I was talking about some of the things I didn't buy with Rex, that's the only thing that was slightly, not too much, not enough to detract from the movie, but I think it was slightly contrived that he just happened to be snapping a Polaroid at the moment she stepped out. But we forgive that because it's a film, so I
was going to ask you about that. On a rewatch, do you see her in the background?
I tried to see her, I couldn't.
she's
Did
so
you, Jamie?
blurred. I don't think he's literally
I don't
grasping
think
a hope.
so.
I think like that's what you're meant to. He's like that blur hair. That's her there, isn't it? When it's.
I mean, he was snapping the pic as they came out, so it is very possible that he does have a glimpse of her in that Polaroid, but on rewatch they don't shoot it, so you see even a glimpse.
But you see him in frustration kick away the drinks.
Yes.
That are run over by the car, and I like the sort of.
I like that too.
And so you find out later on a little bit more about that. But the way that you have the cause and effect, but they're sort of the other way around.
Yeah.
Very well done. And it's almost, don't you find out from the cashier? Doesn't she say it's a Coke and a beer? So and then it's almost like, you see him kick it, you're like, you just kicked away the evidence.
Yeah.
You know she's gone at that moment. It's like she's gone. She's not even holding her drinks anymore.
You know what was very human in that scene at that time, when panic set in and he's well aware that something heinous has happened, and he goes into the manager's office and they're sat down and he says, well, whoever it is, she was getting a coffee, whoever it is, put a coin in the coffee machine, we'll just run all the prints on the coins. And the guy's like, how ludicrous. But if you were in that situation, you probably would. You would try and grab onto what you could control in that situation.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, you said it wasn't scary, Paul, and I don't find it scary in that traditional sense, no, but the idea of that is horrifying. The idea of something like that happening is a very real world scary, this could happen scary.
I just
Very
don't. But I think most people were responding to the killer as the scariest thing. Do you think?
Yeah.
Jamie, take us into this
almost.
next section then, because this next section we're about to focus on the killer. Jamie, you were about to respond to Paul's comment.
Right.
Let's talk about Raymond now.
It's the situation for me, sorry, quickly. It's the situation that's the scary part. It's like he's already obviously on guard after what happened before. She's making sure he's on guard. And he goes to a situation where he thinks he's perfectly safe. And he lets his guard down even into that moment. And that's when it happens. It's like, it is such a...
His guard was never up, though.
No.
Well, I feel like he was always
I don't
looking
think-
out. He was always looking out, wasn't he?
But I don't think so. I don't think you're ever aware that thing's going to happen to you. So I don't think your guard's ever up for that situation. And for the fact that he's walked away from it in that tunnel, I don't think he's like really worried about what happens to her at that moment. That's why he just lets her walk off and get the drinks.
Anyway, Jamie, go ahead.
Right. Okay. So I'll ask this one question. I will say something about Raymond later on, but I wanted to ask you guys: is Raymond a genuine sociopath or serial killer? Or how would you categorize him as a?
We knew this was going to come up. We
Because
spoke about this in the Patreon
Oh, did
episode.
you? Okay then.
No, we didn't get into it because we knew that we were going to have to get into it in the episode, and we didn't actually speak together about what we thought. So
We knew something would come up, but we didn't have the discussion.
we're speaking fresh about this. I personally think he is a psychopath because I think he is very cold, calculated. He has a plan. He knows what he's doing. It's all. He has no remorse or any empathy for. Well, actually, there's moments.
There is, I think he does. So basically, anyway, for those who are patrons, you'll hear us dissect the difference between sociopath and psychopath for about 40 minutes afterwards, so we won't trail over that. But in a nutshell, the difference we seem to strike between a psychopath and a sociopath was that a psychopath was very cold, calculated, meticulously planned things, whereas a sociopath was a little bit more emotional, volatile, has trouble planning things, and just reacts to situations in an extravagant way. And the fact that he later defines himself as a sociopath was interesting, because I never even considered that, Jamie, until you brought it up as a patron topic. And I thought, it's interesting that Jamie's chosen sociopath, because I thought, does he actually refer to himself as a sociopath in this film? He does. He actually says in the car later, he says, if you look in the medical journals, you will find me described as something sociopath.
That's something a psychopath
in the new
would
medical
say.
journal. There's something a psychopath would say, yeah, to differentiate. But he doesn't fit the full criteria of a sociopath. But he doesn't fully fulfill the criteria of a psychopath either.
We did border these certain characters as well. We were discussing like Hannibal Lecter and who else would we say that we weren't
Batman.
too sure. There was certain elements where Batman is a sociopath. There's certain elements where it doesn't fit into both categories. There's like a boundary.
There's a
it's
blurring,
like balancing on the fence between them both.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because if you look at how we came up with this in the first place, it all sort of originates from when you get an early experience where he jumps into the river and saves that person, and then his daughter is you're my hero, and he says, well, if I can do this act of heroism, I'm capable of this act of heroism. On the one hand, am I capable of extreme evil as well? So he views it almost like, as he's a science teacher, he views it almost like an experiment. Am I capable of this?
Which is more of a sort of psychopath
I'd
thing,
say
right?
so.
I would say so, yeah. But then he's so sort of meticulous, and some of it is really quite dark, really, isn't it? When you think about it, when he tests it on his daughter at one point.
Oh, so dark.
That's really dark.
It's when he picks her up from is it the train station he picks her up from?
Yeah.
It's just
And
like,
so-
come on, man.
So in
How do you
order,
blur those boundaries? That's like almost like paedophilia.
I know,
kind of shit.
it's hugely uncomfortable.
And it was so quick.
He would
the
probably
snap of it.
rationalise it as well. I'm not going to do anything to my daughter. I'm just testing. I'm using her as a dummy in this situation. But here, just so we have it for context, here is the list of things that Raymond does as prep. So he plants spiders in an outside table drawer to test how far the screaming can be heard. He chloroforms himself to test the time he's unconscious for, and then equates that with the distance/mileage he can cover. He practices in what I think is a very darkly humorous scene. He practices the handling of the hanky and the bottle of chloroform and his movements outside and around the car. There's a very uncomfortable line of humour that runs underneath that scene throughout.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
He checks his pulse rate throughout. He practices English amongst other languages, saying key phrases that will help getting assistance, hitching his trailer to his car, a scene Jamie doesn't like. We'll find out why shortly. The family pictures, as you say, the whole thing of jumping into the water, and then if I can do this, what else can I do? If I can save a life, can I take a life? Although that's not strictly true. And then little coincidental things like the presents that are bought for him, then helping with the final thing with Saskia. Not to mention all his not failed, but like example test abductions where he encounters women in the wild, and
while we're focusing on his character, I mean, what is interesting is you do find out a lot more about Raymond than you do Rex. What about his what is the turning point in his childhood that gets him to think that he has more control over his life than...
Yes. So we have the scene where he is standing on the balcony leaning out, and he realizes that he wouldn't, like, destiny is that he wouldn't jump, of course not. So he decides, well, what actually if I do? And then he does. And then in a very confusing line, we find out he broke his arm and lost 2 fingers. His words, he has all his fingers.
Yes. Yes.
What does he mean by this?
Something a psychopath would do. Lie.
Good point. I didn't pick up on that. But if he hadn't done that, then you see how it's sort of linked together. That sort of act, how he's able to sort of compel himself to do that, enables him to then jump off and save.
Yeah, jump off the bridge
later on. Yeah.
This was the strongest stuff in the entire film for me. Not just these scenes where you see this happening, but how it then plays into that larger ideology of these tiny little things that happen in life. Some of it planned, some of it inconsequential, then culminating in one entirely different act. Where if just one of those pieces hadn't happened, it could have changed everything. Such as, had he not jumped from that balcony way back, of course it set off an avalanche of events, but had he not, his arm would never have been in a cast, so a picture would never have been taken, so it never would have been presented as a birthday present, which he looks at and then realises, oh, it's not the trailer and the car that needs to be weak, it's me that needs to be weak.
I never even realised. I didn't really pick up on that at the time, to be honest.
So he does the old Ted Bundy.
Exactly that, yeah. And then used again in Silence of the Lambs by Buffalo Bill. That's how he gets her into the car, arm in a sling.
This whole segment is my favourite part.
Yeah,
It
I would say so.
It is so interesting. You never get this side to a murder mystery. It's the
never.
opposite.
I was trying to think, when do you ever have that in a film? I can't think of one.
It would be the reveal at the end, and it showed like the steps. But this is before you even know what's happened to her. This is before the event's even taken place, and it's the building up to it. As you said, I found it quite humorous when he was doing the chloroform on the thing and practicing at the time. Oh, that wasn't quick enough. It was very disturbing when he quickly, the jolt of his arm going around his daughter. That was pretty weird. But totally interesting, so captivating.
See, this is for me. Sorry, where this is where the film. This is that kind of that crossroads of where we're talking about here. For me, the film is like all this build up. The first was it 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes of this film. It's so interesting. It's so well done. Every movement is almost perfect. And then the kind of he kidnaps her, and then we have the bit with Rex afterwards. And I think it's only really the cafe scene, and then till he gets picked up at the very end again. There's like that kind of in my opinion, looking back on the film now, it felt like the last hour dragged on quite a bit. But talking to you guys now, this is why I feel like I need to talk about it again. I don't remember that last section being so long, and the bits that I thought were long and dragged out probably didn't even exist actually. Because the cafe scene I remember being extremely well done. Again, that kind of brought me back to the beginning bit of like that, where they're playing with each other.
I think you've got about... I think it's probably about 20 minutes between that cafe scene and then Raymond and Rex meeting, and I could see
it's just
you're
like
not
there's so
really
many
liking
really
that
well
bit.
done. It maybe goes back to like what you think about Inglourious Bastards in some ways, like those scenes when Hans Gruber's on, not Hans Gruber.
No, that's
Hans
Die
Gruber?
Hard.
Hans Lander.
Hans
Yes.
Lander. It was Hans Gruber's fucking
Die Hard.
Die Hard.
Yeah. Those moments when he's on is just brilliant cinema, and when he's not, the film kind of, like you said, you feel like it dials down for you, and that's what it kind of felt
See what
here.
you
And
mean,
it kind
yeah.
of, you're just waiting and waiting, and it was that, like the moment up until she got, like you see her get kidnapped almost. Well, you know she's gone, and then you find out why and exactly how he planned it all. That's fantastic. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
But then it's the bits surrounding this, and then you've got the scene in the cafe again, which was good, but again, that was probably only like 5 minutes long, wasn't it? That scene in the cafe, and then you've got the whole car at the end. But the car at the end, you're kind of like almost begging for him to just get to the end of it, and you just like.
Oh
get
well,
his
look now.
revenge.
Yeah, but wait.
Well, we're not going to
listen,
jump forward.
We get
onto
onto that bit, but I think that's
I'm
rather
just
the
saying
point.
this is where the crossroads for me happened. It's like everything's so good, and then it kind of just it was on like 11, and now you're down to like 5.
I can get that. The tension and the interest levels are dialed back a little bit once you get to a little more focus on Rex in the present day, if you want to call it the present day, because you've had the mystery of the first act, and then you've had the intrigue of the second act. The third act is, well, we kind of at this point kind of know generally the circumstantial stuff, so now Rex needs to be compelling enough.
But I feel this segment is fantastically played. Raymond is so adamant about placing himself in the situation that Rex is trying to find her, and just seeing him lurking in the background, just seeing him talking to his friends, like, oh, you know, it's like he's what did he say to the colleague? Can't remember what he said now. He says
this guy in his posters, he won't let up.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
I mean, he is placing himself in danger, isn't he?
Yes,
he is.
He almost
Engaging in
wants
this.
to be caught.
Yeah,
But
I think he knows he can't be.
But yes, that's the thing.
I
He's
think-
trying to tease it. He's trying to tease it because he wants the thrill.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes, and
I think
that's what
he's also, I think he does genuinely sort of admire his obsession. It's in some way they're, you know, different sides of the same coin that
yes,
way.
yes,
And how obsessive they can get.
yes.
And he's drawn to that, and
I like this thing that you've said about this cycling, Jamie, and why we hear this commentary, because all the cyclists obsess. They're competing, but they're essentially doing the same thing. That like resonates even harder now when you think about this sort of like kind of like the reason that Raymond keeps teasing Rex out is because yes, he's enjoying that, but there is almost like an admiration there in a way of like, well, I admire that this guy has this undying pursuit, and he's willing to sacrifice so much for the truth, sacrifice everything for closure.
And I love that scene where he lures him to the cafe, doesn't he? And even another thing, him just trying to insert himself into the investigation, and that shot of panning round, and everything's out of focus, and it's panning round, and you're like, where is he?
Where is he?
He's got to be somewhere. Where is he? And you just see him tiny up in the balcony, doesn't even acknowledge it. And he's like, there he is. Brilliant, so well played. And then he
It is
walks
very
down,
well
and
done.
you just see him walk down in the background and comes places himself in a seat next to his seat. Oh, it's very well played, really well played.
But I think what makes him this sort of unnerving character is because he looks so innocuous. You know, there's nothing about him really. You know, he's a family man. He's well educated. You know, he's a teacher. You know, all teachers are very stable individuals, obviously, aren't they? You know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you know, role models, etc. So So he's he, and I think perhaps that's where the sort of I'm gonna go for a bit of a Lynchian sort of reference here. You know how Lynch always sort of he can sort of see the sinister sort of underside. You got your on the surface. You got your family man. You've got your white picket sort of. He's a comfortably middle class, isn't he? And educated. Everything seems fine on the surface, but underneath, he's got this evil lurking within him. That's just waiting to.
It just reminds me of like Ted Bundy. He's this like he's so normal, classic psychopath, and everyone's saying, oh, but he was such a nice guy, such a normal guy, and it's like you'd never expect this person. This person could be anyone, just
the
walking around you,
anything,
just lurking.
Yeah,
very good.
And that's what makes him really chillingly effective.
Yes, although he still looks like a goofball, a little bit like a goofball.
I think the thing is the
It's
beard.
the beard. It's
Yes.
the beard. It's just hilarious. I was just laughing
yes.
at it.
Yeah.
That's the anomaly. I would think if that's his one, well, not error because it never got him caught. But if anyone was to say, "Oh yeah, she left with a man," oh, what did he look like? Well, he had this really distinct beard. That really picks him out of a crowd. Not many people walk around with that bloody beard.
Doesn't he change his facial hair after?
It gets a
No.
bit shorter, doesn't it?
Something
It's the
changed.
same.
His appearance has changed slightly, I'm sure.
Glasses. The glasses come on and off sometimes.
I thought it was something with his hair. That
The
was
cast
different.
comes on and off.
Yes.
I also like the little other scenes, like when he just happened to be in that footage with his daughter, the news footage, when the news reporter's saying, somewhere in this crowd could be a
He
killer.
stands out so much.
Yeah.
It's like, you can see he's there. Look, that guy with a child.
Just so, here's the thing. Why does Rex, once we get to this part of the movie, refer to Saskia as his friend?
He must be with his new girlfriend.
Yeah.
Is that the reason?
Yeah, I think it could be. Yeah, perhaps he doesn't want to offend his current girlfriend.
Right. Okay.
Well,
But also it could be sort of indicating that, as I suspected earlier, he has sort of emotionally moved on from her as his lover, and he's now he just wants to know what happened to her.
Yeah.
And it could be a result of his guilt or whatever. But
So you saying this, I didn't actually consider this thing of him like being emotionally removed from it and just wanting an answer, but this actually makes a lot more sense based on his personality in that first half hour. That plays a lot more into it. Like we don't really see compassion or too much love from him. Yeah, we see some puppy love, but nothing that really feels deep or genuine.
Yeah.
So this makes a lot more sense that it actually just becomes a pursuit for the answer.
He wants emotional closure. And he will go to whatever extent he has to get it.
Yeah, it's turned into an obsession.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is slightly. I think it must be the reason why I don't think it was convincing enough, maybe, because when it got to the end, I was like, was that it? I'm not sure whether it was the fact that I didn't believe his pursuit, or maybe the ending just isn't. Maybe it's just the ending that didn't suit me, but there was something missing from that
You want it
ending.
more whole, almost, like where she actually was.
I don't know, but then I know Jamie he's going to bring this up soon about the. I won't say it yet. I'll let Jamie bring up the ending to the American version.
Yeah.
But I think, so for context, for those of you who haven't watched the film, for your sins, the final 30-40 minutes culminates in this drive where Rex finally meets the man who knows what happens to Saskia. They go on a car journey from Amsterdam to France, and all along the way, Raymond is telling Rex his backstory, what happened, how he got to where he was on that fateful day. And then it culminates with them both returning to the petrol station, the scene of Saskia's disappearance. We see what happened to her. And then he says to Rex, if you want to know what happened next, You will drink this. What is in it? It's coffee. It's spiked with a sleeping pill. I won't tell you what happened to her, but you will experience what happened to her. And now at this moment, this is a wonderful moment in both cinema and as a just question about life, because cinematically it works. Ironically, knowing what I know, and I'm not going to steal your thunder, Jamie, but knowing what I know about the American remake, ironically it works because of that need for closure and a nice rounded ending, to have an answer which is satisfying, to go, okay. And then it's also horrifying because at that moment in time, cinematically, you are forced to answer the question, do I want to know? And in real life, would you want the answer at that moment?
Well, you often hear of families of victims, and one of the worst things is not having closure, not having that, not knowing, having a loved one who is kidnapped, and there's no body, there's nothing to really sort of enable them to have that emotional closure. It's something that can eat away at that individual. So
it's a horrendous thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you on one level you can sort of see, in many ways Rex becomes the audience sort of surrogate. You are seeing things through Rex's perspective, and Rex wants to know, you want to know, or there's there's a side of you that's, do I really want to know, because Raymond has made it very clear that killing her is not the worst thing that he can do.
Thank you. I'd forgotten to bring that up. What? It's, well, okay.
So,
I think it's just occurred to me.
I mean, he basically, Rex knows that she's dead. He does know that. Raymond's basically told him, but he's so gone by that point. He's lost his mind basically by this point. He needs to know, and he's gone to such an extreme, and I think Raymond knows he's got him. He knows I'm just going to wind you in now. And that's when, one very effective shot, and you get quite a few of these, is, so we are at the end now. So when Rex is doing this sort of mad running
around as the thunder crashes above, thunder and lightning. It's very Heathcliff on the Moors stuff.
Yeah. And then he takes a drink, throws at the windshield, and then you are seeing it from Raymond's perspective. It's like you have become the killer.
Yeah.
Or you are from that perspective at that point. And then when he comes in and he basically delivers the same line that Raymond told him earlier about why he jumped. Social constraints or whatever just told me that I wouldn't do it, so I did.
So I did.
Yeah. So then that's showing that they are so close together. They are
one and the same in many ways.
On the same path.
Yeah. But my personal feeling, it would have been even more. I mean, the shot after that, you see Raymond. There's a shot, just a couple of seconds of him shoveling. Does it need that shot of Raymond doing the shoveling? I don't think it does. I think just a cut right to that, and then it would just have even more effect. But it is a chilling ending. Well, I think it's very. If you've got any sort of fear of claustrophobia or anything like that, that would be just a horrible experience.
But it's also so inevitable.
It
is. You know the pursuit is going to end there.
Yeah.
It's like you know something is about that. It's just a question of that. But that makes it horribly compelling as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in if I was in that situation, I would need to know. If I was presented with exactly the situation Rex was in, I don't know exactly how.
Well, even to the extent of knowing that you're probably going to die to know the answer.
But the thing is, there is a chance.
What he's chosen to knowing the answer over his new girlfriend and his new
I
life.
think he's lost all sort of
Perspective on that.
rational sort of thought at
True.
that point. He's gone beyond.
Yeah, didn't you see his 80s computer screen change to
Yes.
Saskia's name in front of him in a
Yes.
very weird 80s?
Yes.
This is a
I was
mental
gonna bring that up.
breakdown represented on an 80s computer.
I was thinking that. I was thinking, is this not a mystical thing? What's going on?
Yeah.
But that was his breakdown.
It
was
reminded me of the moment in Ghost when Patrick Swayze's typing his name repeatedly over and over on the computer screen. It's very 80s tech stuff. I think the obsession and the compulsion at that stage anyway, the idea that you could have FaceTime with the person who holds all the answers to something like that is incredulous. Here's the scene that I really didn't like, but I didn't get, and I felt this was pointless in an otherwise like movie that was very precise about why it was including scenes. They stop and have a conversation about French and Dutch names for a prolonged period of time, the two Raymond and Rex, and it's just like back and forth about how names are
Don't remember
in
that.
France and
No,
it's
yeah.
very strange, and I was trying to work out what significance does this have, and I could not get it. Not enough to warrant its own entire scene. That would have taken up a day's worth of filming, but I couldn't work out what significance that had in the film. Was it trying to show how, despite the situation they were in, these two men still needed to stretch their legs and just have a conversation about nothing? Didn't quite feel right for me.
I don't remember it. So it obviously was not needed.
Yeah. I mean, there must have been a reason for it, but I can't work it out.
The interesting thing, just to go back to his decision to drink the Kool-Aid, as they say. Before you said the line just then about you will experience what she experienced, I didn't remember that, and I read it as that. Obviously, I had an idea that maybe he was walking into his own demise, but I had the idea that maybe he was going to show him, but he wasn't going to show him where it was. So I wasn't I was on the fence of, is he going to die now, or is he going to show him? But he's not gonna. He has to like give himself up to him to be able to show him. But yeah, that kind of makes the ending better, knowing that line, because then it's almost like giving himself up. The pursuit to find her is bigger than his life, basically.
Yeah, well, that's it. It had ultimately taken over his life.
Yeah,
hadn't it? It's like he needs to know, to the point where he goes to that extreme. And what he says, I'm prepared to do anything.
Yeah,
I need to know.
Even to the point where he's not even going to be in the same place she is. He's literally going to be on his own, just like she was, and go out exactly the way that she went out. Apparently. Do you know, you said at the beginning, did she die?
Yeah.
What did you mean?
So the only reason I say that is well, if we hold him at his word that he has literally done to Rex what he did to Saskia, then fine. But we don't actually, as audience members, know definitively that happened.
I think
it's implied.
I'm pretty sure there's a camera move where
in that very final scene,
might be a little bit before that, where the camera sort of lingers on a ground shot, level shot, indicating that she's there.
Is that with the back of the car, isn't it? Maybe is it towards? It kind of pans out towards the back of the car.
So the final shot of the movie is his wife coming to water what looks like two newly planted sort of trees on fresh earth. She waters them. He's sitting on the bench outside the house staring at them. But a great choice by the director, because the director positions the camera where the graves are, so he's actually staring down at the camera, and it holds his gaze. That's what struck me. It holds his gaze, and then it goes pans down as if we can't bear to look at you anymore now.
Yeah,
and then it goes to that paper in the back.
I think it's strongly implied, but I like that sort of how it's not. It doesn't go any further than that. In the remake, we'll make a few points.
Yeah, go for this.
In the remake, okay, so the girlfriend in the remake is so much more a part of the film, to the point where so Kiefer Sutherland plays the Rex part, and his girlfriend has a much bigger role, to the point where she actually ends up searching for him when he disappears. So there's another element of sort of searching. So she becomes like Rex, But so she actually tracks him down. So he does get, he is in the coffin at the end, but she saves him. She kills Raymond, and saves Kiefer Sutherland's
Sounds
Too
character.
polished.
And then
Absolutely
after,
horrendous.
And then after, it's so Hollywood. And then after, he's walking out, and he sees the grave of it. It's Sandra Bullock who plays the character.
Right.
He sees the grave. and
Everything's wrapped up in a little
so
bow.
he knows, and then
Yeah.
that she's definitely there. So yeah, it's made crystal clear in the remake that he kills her.
I don't like the idea that they kind of win. I kind of like the idea that the killer wins in this film.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of
absolutely.
what works.
And
It's almost like the normal person wouldn't stand a chance against this man who is this methodical in the way he wants to kill somebody.
absolutely, and it's much more true to life as well, isn't it? Evil does, succeed
Prevail.
from time to time. It's not realistic to think that
You kind of
everything
accept
gets-
it in your action films where a normal guy can beat
Yeah.
up an army, but in this kind
Yeah.
of film, it's kind of still serious. It needs to feel like it could happen to you, and therefore the guy
Yeah.
has to win. Unfortunately, that's kind
Yeah.
of the only way it really works.
I can
think-
happily say that I prefer the original version over the American version.
Oh,
Have you seen both?
I hope so.
Yeah. Don't even have to watch it to know.
Yes.
What's interesting though is that isn't it Jeff Bridges who plays the killer in the remake?
Correct. Yes.
I don't know how they were
With a
in
really
the 90s.
with a really bizarre accent as well.
No,
Yeah.
really. It feels like it would almost be the other way, because it feels, I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking of it from 21st century lenses, but it feels like Kiefer is the oddball who would be the killer, and Jeff Bridges would be the handsome lead.
I think you're thinking of Melancholia. His sociopathic ways in Melancholia.
Yes, this is true.
I haven't seen Melancholia, so
Very good.
No.
I'm
Or
going
is
to
it
watch
Phone
that.
Booth as well, where he's kind of a...
I'm going to watch it.
Is it Phone
But-
Booth?
Yeah, phone booth as well.
Buried, you're
Yes.
thinking of.
Yeah,
Oh no, he is in Phone Booth, sorry, yeah.
He is. Yeah, he's the killer. Yeah.
He's the cool one.
I think there are quite a few similarities with Seven.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Things I sort of want to draw attention to, and at the same time, I'll explain why I didn't like that scene.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So when Raymond is he's at that point, are we to think that he is now changing tactics and he's targeting British tourists, I presume. Is that why he's doing that? So he is rehearsing. You see him rehearsing, coming up with this sort of will you attach it, and it makes him look like a bit of a fool.
Yes.
And
it brings that humour element back into
but
it.
I think the humour is misplaced. Okay,
I can get that.
and
yeah.
I don't think. I mean, apart from that, he is a very sort of chilling sort of character, and then putting in that strange scene of. I think the other scene when he's preparing and you've got that strange jaunty music and it, that works in a darkly humorous way, but when he's rehearsing those lines, it makes him look foolish. Well, for a character who's so sort of in control of everything.
True.
And if you sort of compare it to Seven, there are a couple of flashes of humour in Seven, but it's done in a way that doesn't take away from the tone and how sort of darkly sinister John Doe is as a character. So the one scene that I recall for that is
I hope you say what I think you're going to say.
when they're taking him out in the car at the end, and you see a dead animal.
Dog.
Dog,
Yeah.
is it?
Yes.
I didn't do that. and it's
Yeah.
funny, but
it works so well.
But
yeah.
it works. It doesn't sort of make his character into a fool. It works well. You know, it's needed. It's earned relief. But doing it in The Vanishing just does a disservice to his character. Another point of comparison between this film and another favourite film of mine, Seven, is the concept theme of fate and chance. So in Vanishing, you have the scene we mentioned before, so I won't say too much about it. How it is up to sort of fate that Saskia is taken. The cruel sort of twist of fate. I really like how that's played a significant role in The Vanishing, and then similarly how a film like Seven, if you think about it, and I'm sort of focusing from it's from the killer's perspective, how things change, and destiny is something that's not necessarily in your control as a character. The John Doe character in Seven, he needs David's wrath. So at that point, he's got his sort of 7 deadly sins in mind, and this has been going on for a long time. One character is a sloth character, has been sort of tormented for over a year, so he's been planning this for some time, but he doesn't know how it's going to end. He doesn't know how all the pieces are going to fit together. And so in many ways, you think because he's such an angry character, he's angry at the world. He wants to make this sort of moralistic point. You think, well, he's going to be Wrath, isn't he? But as soon as he meets David, soon as he's a photographer, isn't he? And
That's right.
And then David sort of attacks him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's at that point he said, right, I've got you're going to be my Wrath. All right. And then also at the same time, his I don't think he's married. I think anyway. Gwyneth Paltrow's character, he is going to be envious of her. Okay, so it all works together. But it is fate. It's fate and destiny that he meets David at that point.
That's right.
And that changes his plan.
Yeah.
Just the same in The Vanishing, it's fate that he sneezes into the chloroform. And I think at that point, when he takes it off, and he's in the bathroom, he's almost like laughing at himself, isn't he?
Yeah.
At that point, you almost think he's going to give up, isn't he?
Yeah, he's going to walk away from this life.
Yeah.
I'm not cut out for this. And then Saskia approaches him,
and it's almost like he can't believe
So unfortunate.
what's happening at that point.
Yeah.
There's just a series of things that are falling into his lap.
Yes.
And as soon as you
consequently
rewatch, you're like,
throughout.
oh my god, you got you thought if you didn't know he had taken her in the first place, the bit where you think she's got away with it, you'd have been relieved. But the fact that you kind of know she's almost gone by that point, it kind of is a bit like it hurts. It's another kick in the bollocks, almost, isn't it? It's you think you almost could have got away with it. You don't know how lucky you were to just driving off into that sunset. And
I think it is actually a good performance from the actor who plays Saskia at that point. I'm not necessarily convinced with her throughout the film, but in that scene, I think she's really,
She plays it
really
very
good.
well. Yeah.
Really good. And how
But she's trying to speak French as well, so it kind of works in the scene because there's an assumed power dynamic where she's seeking approval from him based on how well she speaks French as well. So she's trying, so it makes sense that he would encourage her along as well, and entertain her.
He's a teacher by profession as well, isn't he?
My God, yes.
It all works. This doesn't shine a good light on teachers.
No, it definitely doesn't. Just to pick up something you said there, Jamie, about him sneezing into the chloroform. The first time it happened, I didn't actually really clock exactly what had happened there because his sneeze was weird, so I didn't really understand that it was a sneeze. And then we played it back, and I was like, all right, he sneezed into it. Why does sneezing into it change his plan? Because the chloroform is still there. He didn't run away because he'd breathed in the chloroform.
it would still go into your system, wouldn't it, and fuck you up?
But he sort of excused himself, went into the bathroom and was washing his face. Are we to think that he inhaled it and he was running there quickly before it had an effect?
He's not sure, Pop. Maybe he's not sure.
He's not sure.
So he goes to the bathroom and he's probably sort of splash of water in his face or whatever, something like that. He's not sure, and by that point, of course, she's gone.
It's like if you put poison in your mouth but you didn't swallow it, you spit it out again, and you run to the bathroom straight away to try and get rid of it, wouldn't you?
Yes. The whole hitching the trailer thing, like you, I wasn't too bothered by him learning the languages so that he could use that line, but on the rewatch it struck me like you're standing in the middle of a really busy place and you're asking, not to be sexist, listeners, I'm not, but you're asking women to help you when there are plenty of men nearer, probably, because you've gone inside a petrol station.
And it's like, how did your trailer get over there when you're over there?
Yes.
It doesn't make sense. You'd be like, straight away, the whole situation is just weird.
Yeah, it was almost like that was a bit of an oversight from him, and like he was just trying to make that final connection. And lastly, this is my actual last point on the film, I think, overall. There's a scene where he's in the city and he doesn't even approach a woman. She approaches him, and she's the teacher of his daughter. Yes. And they have this exchange back and forth where she weird. Quickly realizes that he's not quite right and says to him, if you want to go somewhere, go to a petrol station. There's lots of women, lots of strangers who won't know who you are. Go there. What exactly does she think?
It looks like he's trying to pick up women.
I think he's trying to have an affair or something.
I think so, yeah.
Or look for prostitutes, because if you go to Europe, you find a lot of prostitutes at European service stations.
Yeah, she just thinks she's given him sort of advice to how he can sort of...
how to conduct an affair.
Yes.
Okay.
Or not necessarily even an affair. Does she know that he's married?
That's true. Maybe it was that. The younger daughter says, "Have you got a mistress?" But the older daughter is just very standoffish the whole time. And the younger daughter is the only one that he thanks for the presents on his birthday. Like, what an ungrateful man. Okay, he's also a killer, but what an ungrateful man. On his birthday, he's given all those presents and he doesn't even open his mouth to smile. I rewatched it. The only one he says thank you to is his younger daughter for that key ring. For the lovely tiles that his wife bought for the house, nothing. Doesn't crack a smile. For the nice cardigan, he gets a cardigan, he holds it up against himself. He doesn't crack a smile. Even when they get the photo album out, he doesn't say anything. Just opens it up. Starts flicking through. He says, "Get me my glasses." That's all he says.
We're talking to you guys now. This film is definitely an 8 in my opinion.
Look at you.
Thank you. Lovely. I've got a few notes, and I don't know whether you're.
Let's hear them. Let's have scattergun note section.
Right. I've got obsession beyond reason underlined.
Yes.
Rex knows that he might die, just as a 16-year-old Raymond knew his fall might kill him. Are we capable of free will to go against what is expected? Are we programmed, predetermined to always reject such a situation? Both characters are capable of going beyond such constraints. Both are consumed by extreme characteristics. Both are destined to meet and battle this game out. Both are willing to die to serve their needs.
That's poetry, mate.
That is. That is what Jamie is looking for in an essay submitted on this film. Yes. If you don't hit all those notes, you ain't getting that A.
You definitely got the A, Jamie.
Thank you.
I'm very delighted that this film was brought to our attention.
Yes, very much so. And just to wrap the my take on the ending up. Now that you have, I don't even think I even properly heard that line. But now that I know that he was 100% going for his death and he knew it, that definitely adds a lot more to the ending than what I took from when I watched it.
Yeah, that's definitely fatalistic sort of death drive. He's so he needs to know at whatever cost.
At whatever cost,
and he's given himself up to it by that point.
Yeah.
I also do like to think it's a damning indictment of Western culture and the need for answers in art and for everything to just be explained. Like, don't give me ambiguity, give me answers. I think there's something to be said in it. Yeah. Although I think there would be a lot more to be said in it if he didn't then go on to direct his own remake of his own film. But I choose to believe it was a criticism of Western desire for answers all the time, over interpretation. I choose that as my truth.
It's a good truth.
You also think that if someone's going to get a payday from your film, it might as well be you.
Well, true enough.
Well, that's
if they're going to do it anyway, let me do it. Yeah.
If you're going to make this film, you're going to annoy me anyway. I might as well do it, try and make it what I want, and get paid at the same time.
That has extra pertinence when you guys find out what we're covering on next week's episode.
Oh yes. A little hint there.
Yes.
Lovely. Is there anything else you want to say about this film?
I'm sure I'll think of something at the end of the night, but why did I say that?
You can
Do you
just
wanna
ring up
move
Paul
on?
and add it in. You'll just add it in like it would happen right now. We'll all call some oohs and ahs and I agree with that. Oh, that was We'll just some sound bites we can whack on the end of it,
Send the sound bites.
like a DJ.
Do you want to move on to what some of our followers have to say about this film?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Right, so first of all, we have Sean Panda Nicholson, and he says, probably one of the scariest killers ever put to film. I just find him so haunting and creepy, especially how calm he is. Well, 25th
Agreed.
scariest film of all time, so that's one of the reasons, I guess, one of the
I
scariest.
still don't think it needs. I wouldn't put it on the top 25 scary films of all time.
Yeah, but he's
I mean,
not
it
saying
depends what
films.
you're looking for, though.
He's saying killer, and there's a subtlety to him in him being more
true.
realistic. In the same way that people might say, "Oh, Norman Bates actually isn't that scary." It's like
It's not really it's not really scary. It's sort of
it's just close to home. It's uncomfortably
unsettling.
Yeah, uncomfortably upsetting. Yeah, like that guy that you see in Sainsbury's every day could be a killer. Could have someone in the basement of his house or whatever. You know, that sort of unsettling.
You can argue that this sort of character, this sort of killer, is far more scary than your typical, horror slasher character. Who and they're designed to be scary, but it's much more scary to have this killer that you can't really sort of you.
He's your neighbour.
Yes.
It's just much more primal. It's more human. Like Michael Myers works on if I'm going to the bathroom in the middle of the night and I need to go down the hallway without turning a light on, and I turn that light on, is Michael there? The idea of that still scares me as a 35-year-old man. But I'm not going to be thinking about this guy in the middle of the night and be scared for that reason. But I may wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and the idea of him and what that means is more scary in a fucking existential kind of way, you know.
His crimes are done in broad daylight.
Yeah.
So you
Right in
don't.
front of you.
You don't have that sort of traditional sort of horror, sort of in the darkness, creeping element, and in some ways it makes it even more sort of sinister, knowing that it's in broad daylight, and just when you feel you think you should be safe in those elements.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next one up here we got is from Carlo. I saw this years after watching the remake and knowing the outcome already, and I still found it effectively chilling with a very haunting ending.
Years after watching the remake,
So
like
that's
Jamie.
So probably my experience then, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Jamie, were you surprised when you watched the original and he wasn't saved then?
I had a feeling that it was going to be distinctly different. So that's-
good.
Yeah.
It's more European as well.
Yes.
Lovely.
And finally, Gidget Von LaRue says, fantastic movie, American remake Pussied Out. I saw this film with my dad at the cinema. There was us and about 4 other people in the cinema. Loved it. Yeah, I like those low turnout screenings of films. It feels a lot more intimate.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Well, that's all good stuff, and we agree with all of that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good reviews.
Thank you, our Twitter followers. Lovely stuff. Shall we move on to placing this film?
Oh, lovely.
It's going to be up there.
All right, guys, as always, we take a step away to just calibrate the charts and work out what and where this positions. So we figured out that this was an 8.3 average. We got a few films at 8.3. We got The Suicide Squad at the bottom of the 8.3 pack, and we decided it was better than that. We got The Straight Story above that, and collectively we decided it was better than that. We then have Sound of Metal, and we said it was better than that. and we have They Live, and we said it was better than that, and then we had Goal, and as much as it rips me apart, I have too much affinity with Goal, and Adam does as well. So
Very
The
bad.
Vanishing sits just below.
I would not agree.
Appalling.
Santiago Munez didn't travel all the way from the streets of LA to Newcastle for
Fulham.
nothing, and played against Fulham while his dad saw him play. So
Terrible stuff. So
I'm
23rd
sorry.
place, was it?
23rd place.
Wow. Look at that. Sorry, Jamie.
Are you ready for something? Are you
Go
ready
on
for
then.
the big? Are you ready for a big surprise?
Oh,
We got to
Go
do
on.
Jamie's other ranking first.
this,
haven't we?
this is my ranking now, is it?
It's Jamie's ranking time.
Right.
You
Or was
wasn't
that the
though,
surprise?
was
I
it,
thought you were
Ben?
going to say another surprise.
You were setting up something else, weren't you?
Right, yes. So whenever we have a guest on this podcast, they get a little perk as when they come on the episode, and they get to put their rating to any film we have reviewed and skew our tables a bit. Skew our top 20 maybe skew our top or bottom 10. Who
Anything.
knows? Let's see what Jamie wants to do.
Well,
Go ahead, Jamie.
this could go either way. I mean, I could really sort of kick a film way down.
You could.
A film that I disagree with, Brass. I might just do something spontaneous and change what I was originally planning on doing. I mean,
He's
You
a
are
I
sociopath.
could do that.
He's a sociopath.
And perhaps it's destiny, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that film Goal, I might just have to knock that one down. I mean, it's
Oh
it's
my
in my
lord,
way.
Adam, we can't let this happen.
This is
Well,
harsh,
yeah,
bro.
hang on a minute. I'm in control here.
He has. He's got
The
control
only
of the
thing is,
boards.
Ben, if he knocks it down, it means we have to stop fighting against these films that are going to be kind of knocking around that level. It's a bit like with Velocipasta, isn't it? There's so many films that you know are better, but your heart says no, you can't put it.
I
above.
want to reach out to Jamie and tell him, look into your heart and go with your guts. The film you really want its change.
Not with your
Don't
brain.
act impulsively.
Go on, keep it going.
I feel like there's a reason you picked whatever film you picked before you came to this podcast, and it's
Yeah.
because it really means something to you. Goal will be a very shallow victory. It
You'll
won't
live
move
it
the
for
Vanishing
5
into the
minutes
top
and then you'll
20.
forget.
It will just move it from 23rd to 22nd. Is that really all that satisfying? Perhaps.
Okay. I'm not going to do that.
Saved it. Saved it.
I'm not going to do that. That would be very churlish. Right. I don't really like to knock films down, to be honest. That's not, I'm more interested in
Elevation.
Celebrating.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So last time, Midsummer. This time, I'm going to go for a film that it blew me away in a way that I can't really quite understand, and I have to rewatch it again. But it's Holy Motors.
Wait.
Whoa!
Wow.
Great.
What's gonna happen
I'm going
here?
to give that a 10.
Wow.
I'm going to give Holy Motors a 10.
Wow,
'Cause that-
wow,
yeah.
wow. That is going to really boost it.
Oh my god, we've already, so that's 6 people's votes on that as well. We're gonna
Yeah.
have to recalibrate here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where's
Let's
Holy
have a
Motors
look.
at the moment?
I think
I've got
20.
it.
I think Julio's going to
27.
be very pleased with that.
Yeah. Let's do this. So
I'm
we got
pleased with that
Holy
I'm
Motors.
pleased.
because it's a film that has sat with me, not just because we did it with the Contrarians, not just because it gets mentioned a lot, but it is a film.
It's
You
it's
think
so
about more and more.
So distinctive, and yeah, and it, again, a film that doesn't need to tell you all the answers.
Adam gave it a 7.
Right, so
Yeah,
we've
but
got
it's
2 7.
thinking
Alex
of it
and
now.
Adam. Paul, add these up. Alex and Adam gave it 7. You gave it 8. I gave it a 9. Julio gave it a 10, and Jamie gave it a 10. So divide that by 6. Yeah, 8.5. It goes into the top 20. It goes in.
Whoa!
Jamie's put a film, not the one that he brought to the podcast, but with his vote, he has thrown a film into our top 20 listeners, which means we got big decisions to make here, boys, because we have 4 big hitters on 8.5s. The lowest of the 8.5s at the 17th spot being Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's better than that for me.
I'd say it's better.
So on it goes. Next one up, Halloween 2018. It's better than that for me.
It's not better.
Adam.
Better.
Yeah, it is better. I can't remember anything about Halloween today.
Definitely better.
Wait.
I think I gave them both a 7.
Adam.
I reckon you gave Halloween an 8.
Well, even it's just going on gut feeling right now, Paul. So move on.
Yeah, but you can't go against your scores.
We don't have to be that
Well,
OCD
you
with
can.
it.
You can change it.
He
He
can
gave
change
Halloween
it
an
at the
8.
end of
He
the year.
can't.
He gave Halloween an 8.
Yeah, can't go
So what
above
does
it.
that mean?
It sits between Halloween and Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, but I want to change
Well,
it now. Can't I change it now?
No, you
No,
can't.
you can't.
Mate. You can only change it at the end of the year. You know
list and
this.
your stupid rules, Paul.
Holy Motor sits above Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but below Halloween 2018, and above that is Smoke, and above that is Midsummer. Jamie, you seen Smoke?
Yes.
Oh, good. What do you think of that? You like
I
that?
really enjoyed it. Yes.
Oh, good, wonderful.
Really good film.
I'm very glad. Smoke is the most unassuming film in this top 20, and
I had-
I've got sad news though.
I hadn't seen it until you recommended it. Well, you brought it up in the show, and then I
See, this
watched
is
it
a
and
die-hard
listened to it.
fan, people. This is a die-hard. Now, listen, I've got sad news.
What's the sad news?
The addition of Holy Motors means we lose something from the top 20.
We do. Poor. That's poor.
Both eyes have been poked out, and Bacurau is well and truly blind. It's no longer in the top 20.
Oh.
So now, just holding on to that top 20 spot is the Blues Brothers. Adam, you'll be pleased to know.
All right, I
Get
might
out.
pump that. I
Get
can't
out.
even pump it up to a 10. I've got it at a 10 already, haven't I?
Yes.
I think bumping up Bacurau. Just wait another 6 months or so, then I can bump it up.
Yeah.
Above the Blues Brothers, Jamie.
Yes.
You get your sticker, buy your sticker for it, and then move on.
Exactly. Are we done with the ratings?
We're done.
No, we're not. We got one last surprise, one last twist in the tail.
What's the surprise?
Guess who went to the cinema yesterday?
Did you?
Guess who watched The Suicide Squad?
Oh
Did
my
you?
god.
Have you seen it yet, Jamie?
Yeah.
So this is the thing he was going to say earlier that he didn't want to tell us.
This is the surprise.
Go
So
on then.
patrons, you'll hear me call it out in a minute. So I watched it. I haven't got the time to get into it now, so I'm not even going to explain myself. If you want to talk about it, we'll talk about it in the next episode. Yeah? Or the
Okay.
next Patreon.
On the Patreon episode, maybe.
In fact, mate, do you know what? We will be talking about it on the Patreon episode because so far it is the worst film that I have seen this year. I don't mean this year, I mean this month, but it is bad. I had
How bad?
next to zero interest in it. It was a 5 out of 10.
Look at that.
Yeah. We'll talk about it at the end of the month.
Ben, what happened when King Shark ripped that guy in half? Did you not go, that's kind of cool?
No, because whether I wanted to or not, I'd seen that in a million trailers already.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I hadn't seen the trailers, so.
We'll talk
Well,
about it next
Well, I
month.
did, I think I forgot that bit.
But do you know what that does? Do you know what that does? Recalibrating the charts, it means it's going to drop right down, and it's so fitting you're here, Jamie. It means it matches with one other film on our rankings.
Did you divide it by 4, yeah?
Yeah.
Burn
Yeah.
after reading.
Burn after reading. The Suicide Squad or Burn after reading. I'm saying Burn after reading.
Well, I say burn after reading too, so that's where it goes.
There it goes.
Excellent.
That's
Paul, are you
fine.
happy that he got him
That's
to say
fine.
Burn After Reading was a better film than something? It just happened to be a Suicide Squad film.
That's wonderful.
Listen, hey, you know I haven't got a problem with DC. I like DC, but these Suicide Squad films are not for me.
That's fine. You love. Well, I won't say love.
I like
but
Sex and the City, yes, that's fine.
the Snyder Cut. You like that? That's good enough for me.
I did the Snyder Cut is still...
That was so out of the blue. That was. I was not.
Yes.
I was not expecting that.
Me either. That was a hell of a ride.
Well, look at that.
Look at
That's
that. We
fine.
can talk more about it next time. Anyway,
Doesn't really surprise
so
me.
shall we go on to patrons?
Yes.
What they've been
so
watching.
lovely. That was a lovely review of the film. Some lovely placing of some films. But now that moves on to our patron suggestions. Our patrons suggest some films that they've been watching recently and basically tell them whether they're good or bad. First, we have Julio. He says, I'm sad to report Gremlins 2 doesn't hold up as well as I was expecting. It's still fun, and if you find the creatures amusing, you'll probably love it. I find the humans more entertaining, so the more Gremlins-centric the movie got, the less I cared. Still, Phoebe Cates, hubba hubba.
I can't imagine Julio saying those words.
The new Nick Cage movie Pig was pretty good, very subdued, non-memeable performance. I'd be really curious to see how you guys react to it. Several friends have absolutely loved it, and while I'm nowhere near that level of enthused by it, I can see where they're coming from. Gremlins 2 is just a parody, really, isn't it? Not really.
Yeah, it is.
They're both fine. They're just
They're
mindless. I like
It's a fine film. I like it, yes, that's it. There's not much more enthusiasm from me about
No,
that one.
they're fine. I enjoy them. They're fine. I am looking forward to Pig, though.
Same.
I know
Same.
nothing about Pig, which
Me
is
neither.
exactly what I want to... Yeah.
It's got a pig in it. Exciting times for Nick Cage.
It's about time. It's been a long time since he did something that was actually properly good, you know?
Yeah.
Katie and Oti said, we watched Pacific Rim Uprising and it was buckets of fun. Initially didn't have any expectations, but with Boyega and Denite attached, the bar was raised. Forage an indulgent snack, a tasty beverage, and tuck into this nonsense because you deserve it. I don't think I do deserve to be.
I've
put through
tried
that
watching
nonsense.
Pacific Rim about 3 times, and every single time
Oh.
I've got about 10 minutes into it, and I thought, why the fuck am I watching this shit? And it's
Isn't that
awful,
just more
and
like
I've turned it off.
Michael Bay style, big dumb?
I only
action
ever watched it
nonsense?
because it had Charlie Day in it. It was like one of the first films he kind
Yeah,
of came
Charlie
out.
Day.
He kind of did after Sunny. I was like, I've tried watching it, but it's got Charlie Day and Charlie Hunnam in it as well. I cannot get
All
into
the Charlies. Charlie's the
I'm
Ron.
sorry, Katie, but you keep
Charlie
your snacks
Manson.
and your beverages.
Yeah.
And
Never ever watched it and never been really interested in watching it.
No, you
so
can keep
excited. She
that
was sorting
snack.
out our Friday night, then we just shut her down. Let's see what
Maybe
we can
I'll
do
watch
to
it
Jamie
for
live.
Katie and Oti. Who knows?
We're watching Jamie's reaction here live as we shoot down his recommendations.
I know, that's true. Jamie
You
gets to
can,
react
you
live
can
to
if you
us.
want. Right, okay. So I've got 3 for you here. Right.
Lovely.
So last night I watched Boss Level. Would make an interesting double bill with Guns Akimbo. Nerd Revert's review sums it up well as Happy Death Day for gamers. It was very entertaining, but it's I'm quite happy just to switch off and just watch something that's just a blast, and I can still really enjoy it. So
I like
give it-
switching off too, by the way. I hope I don't have that reputation. I just like switching off for good things.
It doesn't necessarily have to be good. Just
I suppose.
Mind-numbing.
Just entertaining. These next 2 films. So I've gone for a bit of contrast here. So this next one is a darker sort of indie film called Black Bear.
Oh, yes,
I've
I
heard
want
of
to
that.
see this one.
Never heard of
I
it.
don't know if
Great
I've heard of that
performance.
because of the
Yeah.
Black Mirror episode, but
Great performance by Audrey Plaza.
Yes,
who's
Audrey
who's
Plaza.
normally
Why? great
great in everything anyway. It can be described as a narrative that explores the strains of being directed in a film by a partner you love. The second half is basically a film within a film, revealing all the mechanics of filmmaking process and all the behind-scenes drama. I really enjoyed that. I'll give that an 8. And then just a feel-good film. I watched this with my eldest daughter Erin, and that might have sort of influenced my feelings about it. A film called Marvelous. Have you heard of this?
Oh yeah, is it about the young guy? He wears the helmet. He's got like a disability
Yes.
kind of thing.
So it's a feel-good biopic film of Neil Baldwin, who he's got sort of learning difficulties, but he rises above these challenges, and he becomes a kitman for Stoke City, and played really well. It's a fantastic performance by Toby Jones, and it's just a real good feel good film. Some there's a few dark moments in it, but it's a really good film overall. So I'll give that another 8.
Oh, that's intriguing. I had nothing about that, and I like Toby Jones.
He's really good in that.
it's got that. Has it got that Jacob? What's his name in it?
That is very strange because I thinking of a different film, and it's about a little boy.
Is it the one with that Jacob?
Jamie was
kid in
giving
it?
that plot description, and Paul was like, "When's the helmet come into it?"
Yeah, and I said a little boy with a disability, and then it was like, yes, it's a person with a disability.
Well,
No, you said helmet.
he does. He
yeah,
does
he
have.
wears a helmet.
He does have a.
It's about it's Jake. Yeah, it's Jacob Tremblay. That's what you're thinking of the same film as me. Wonder. It's called Wonder.
Oh, okay, that's the
no,
one I'm
yeah.
thinking of as
That's
well.
a different one.
Different film.
I want to watch that Toby Jones one.
It's good. It's good film.
No, very
Well,
good. How did you watch
wonderful.
Black Bear?
It's on Mubi.
Oh, I don't have that. Okay. Very
Very,
good.
very good, very good.
Nice recommendations there, Jamie. They were all wonderful recommendations. I've
Thank
got
you.
nothing negative to
Absolutely
say about any
wonderful.
of them. Nothing negative to say about any of them.
Fantastic.
Well, yes.
Can I just one sort of podcast shout out? I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So our good friends Movie Drone
Oh, my goodness,
Oh, yes.
recording tonight
Oh, lovely.
with a very special guest,
Yes.
LJ Human.
Yeah.
And I think Luke. I think it's definitely his first appearance on Movie Drone, but I think it might be his first podcast.
I haven't heard him on a podcast yet. I'm very
Me
excited to
neither.
listen. I want to hear how he sounds. When that guy writes reviews, he
His
sounds
reviews
like a
are-
proper
He's the most
academic.
articulate person ever.
Yeah.
He's very articulate with his reviews. Fascinating. I look forward to it. What film are they covering?
Summer of Sam.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a really good film, but it's been a while since I've seen it, so I definitely want to rewatch it, and then I'll
Yes.
be tuning into that. So
Great
yeah,
plug.
so-
And yeah, those guys are lovely and incredible. They regularly play our promos, and I've asked them, send us your promo, and they're like, yeah, we'll get round to creating a promo. They don't have one, but it's just a shout out to say that they are amazing guys. They always plug us, and just keep your ears dialed to other favourite podcasts, because you might just find us in the strangest places before you know it.
Oh. Oh.
Well, you know what that means, but not everyone else.
Ooh.
I don't know
Well,
what
yes.
that means, to be honest.
Because you don't pay attention. You know exactly what it means. You've forgotten. You don't pay attention. But that'll be happening soon, just as soon as lockdowns ease in other parts of the world, I believe. So-
Exciting. Right, before we say goodbye to the wonderful Jamie, should we just say what we're going to be talking about next time?
Well, I was going to say, this is the first time that me and Adam actually know what it is before. Well, and
I know.
with the Vanishing. We
And
know.
Jamie knows already as well.
Does Jamie know?
We gave
okay.
him clues early when he worked it out.
This is
Tease the listeners then.
this is a surprise for the listeners. So this is my pick. This is a film from 1997. How am I going to tease this out? Okay, it's also had a sequel.
remake.
A remake. Yeah,
Shot
it's not
by
a
shot.
sequel. It's a remake, a shot-by-shot remake that had Naomi Watts in it. And you can probably guess
Tim
what it is
Roth.
by now. And Tim Roth, yes, Tim Roth was in it as well. It is by director Michael Haneke. Is it Michael Haneke or Michael Haneke?
I say Hanek.
I
I'd
say
say
Haneke.
I don't know his
Yes.
name.
You probably know what it is. It is Funny Games. I have not watched this film in a long time, but I'm
I've
very
watched
excited.
it in a long time.
This is a film that I chose to show students for several years.
Wow.
And yeah, it always got responses.
Yeah,
Every
I can
time.
imagine.
In many forms.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't remember too much about the detail of it, other than one particularly standout scene.
I know what scene you're
Prolonged.
talking about.
Very prolonged scene, yeah. But I remember, well, yeah. I won't say nothing else.
Well,
I look forward to talking
that
about
is
it.
a film that I would have either suggested myself, to have come in person like this, or for you to have covered.
Well, look, you're getting double the bang for your buck, Jamie.
Look at that.
And it works as a good double header with The Vanishing, I would say, all things considered.
It does, and I will give you my written thoughts about it.
Oh,
Yes.
fantastic. And now let's just say thank you, Jamie. Thank you so much for this suggestion, and thank you so
As
much for
always.
being here today to talk about this wonderful film, because you're a wonderful man teacher.
Yes.
Thank you.
As opposed to a lady teacher.
Yes, exactly. A sociopathic teacher he is.
Yeah, I haven't really been representing teaching very well by suggesting The Vanishing, but there you go.
You absolutely have. My goodness, if I was going to find out something about my upcoming teachers, lecturers, and whatnot, and I found out they had appeared on a few podcasts, and I somehow found out the films they recommended, I'd be like, yeah, I'm onto a winner here.
Defo. Absolutely.
Great calls,
Wonderful,
Jamie, as always.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank
No
you for putting
worries.
up with the long wait for it as well. Sorry it was so bloody long. We got there in the end.
It was
But it's
worth a
done.
wait. Worth a wait.
Fantastic.
Thank you, gents.
Right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I guess we'll see you on the Patreon. You better go check that Patreon out.
see you on the
It's at
Patreon.
www.patreon.com/filmbusters, and it's about sociopaths, our favourite ones. But if you don't want to see that or listen to that, then I guess we'll see you next time on Funny Games. We love you, Jamie Russell.
We love Jamie.
Filmbusters.